Right. Okay, folks. Well, sir, who are you?
Yeah, great. Yeah.
Well, Scott had a phone call to take, so bear with us a second. He'll be right back. I'm here with Scott Alden from Board Game Geek. Scott Alden. And
Sorry about that, Barry.
No problem.
Apologize. Very unprofessional of me. Should mute my phone. I'm going to mute it now.
It happens. So, like I was saying, who are you, sir?
Well, my name is Scott Alden, but I'm also known as Aldie. That's my username on Board Game Geek. And that was it's kind of a nickname that's been with me since the 90s.
Okay.
And I'm the owner of Board Game Geek, and I'm pretty much the guy who runs the show. We do have a lot of employees and stuff, and we're up to 6 now, I think. So it's been growing for sure. It's definitely something that was unexpected when I got first started. I didn't really realize it would turn into such a big deal.
Now, how'd you get into board gaming?
How did I get into board gaming? Well, I've always been a gamer. I think most people who play these games definitely were gamers growing up. And I'd done Magic the Gathering in the 90s. Went through that pretty seriously. I played a lot of Warhammer. And kind of right around 95 or 6, I got a job out in Silicon Valley. So I went to do a startup in the video game industry. It was a computer chip manufacturer called 3DFX, and I was the Mac tech support. So I would fly around all the different video game companies and work with their teams to kind of integrate the 3D graphics into their games. So I was pretty heavily into video games right then, and I wasn't playing many board games. And I worked on that for about a year, and some friends who got me into 3DFX quit and moved back to Dallas. So I started in Dallas doing a lot of gaming, and when I got out of college, went out to California, and then I came back to Dallas to get into a full-time video game company. So I was just surrounded by video games all the time, and I was kind of missing the board games part of my life. And I started kind of looking around for a board game group, basically to kind of try to, my Warhammer group had dissolved. I wasn't playing Magic anymore. I didn't really want to go to the stores, do the tournament stuff. So I switched to Rec Games Board, which is a internet news group. I don't know if you ever spent any time on that, but that was the way to communicate on the internet about the board gaming hobby at that point. And I reached out to a guy here in Dallas who had a game group, and his name is Dirk Solko. He was basically my entrance into the board gaming world of the German board game.
Okay.
And that was in 98 or 99 when I first met him. And I had been reading a lot of, Rec Games Board, Stefano Sullivan's news blog, Mix Velo's blog, The Game Cabinet, The Gaming Dumpster. They're all these kind of small bloggy sites on, that were talking about games, but they definitely weren't like a full-time deal. They were just kind of like, oh, maybe the person would upload maybe once a week or once a month, right? Definitely wasn't to the rate of information that there is now about games. You want me to just parlay this into the history of the Board Game Geek and how it got started? Should I stop there?
No, you might well.
That's kind of how I got back into the gaming of the German gaming. I had just been immersed in video games so much that I was kind of just looking for an outlet to do something different in my spare time. So yeah, when I first got into the German gaming thing, you would see that the games coming in were, I would import games from Fun Again or Germany directly. There was a retailer called Adamspielt, I think was the name of it.
Okay.
You could they spoke English, and you could put an order in for that, directly with them, and they would ship you boxes, a couple weeks. It wasn't really a long time for importing. It was maybe a couple weeks to a month at most of delay. And I would just buy games based on the way the cover looked, right? Or because the names didn't make any sense, right? I didn't really translate. This is kind of before the days of Google Translate. Although maybe it had just started, and I can't remember the exact date that people started using Google Translate. But anyway, so I would just kind of be like, oh, that looks kind of a cool game. I would just order it, right? And I would bring the games to the game group, and Dirk would say, oh, that game's not so good. I heard that's not so great. I'm like, how did you hear about this? Where are you getting this information? So it turns out that there is a invitation-only mailing list called Desert Island Gamers, and it had been created by a bunch of people who are still active in the industry right now. They're bloggers and stuff, and they created a mailing list just to talk about the games, right? Because it was a Yahoo group. Although I think Yahoo groups are still around, but it's not widely used as much. And so I said, oh, well, how do I get on that? Like, he's like, oh, well, I have to get you invited. You have to be, to make sure you're the right kind of person. It was one of those kind of things where it's like a bit of a barrier to get in. It didn't just let anybody who wanted to join the group get on. So I went through a little bit of process. I did a bio, and I got approved. It was basically like, oh, he's a good guy, let him in. It was that kind of thing. And so the group had grown. There was like several hundred members, as I recall. And when I got put on the group, I went and looked on Yahoo. They keep all the archives of all the messages, right? So I started looking, and I was like, oh, this is going back like 5 or 6 years. And I started reading about all the games that had been released in the past 5 years. All these people had been playing them and doing really great content about board gaming hobby, the German board games, doing session reports, posting pictures, writing reviews. It was all just in this hidden mailing list online, that no one could get to unless you were invited. So that kind of got me thinking, maybe I can create a database and start tracking information about the games. And that's kind of where it came from. So I saw this like huge resource of information all hidden behind a mailing list, invitation only. And I asked people to, hey, can we post your session report on Board Game Geek? So we would create the game entry on the Geek. And if you notice that the first 10 games are actually related to the first 10 session reports that were posted. And that kind of started us collecting information about the games, getting the database set up, figuring out the publishers, doing the mechanics and the categories and all that stuff. And then asking permission, of course, for the people who wrote the session reports to just cut and paste them into the database. So we would do that. This was all manual, right? There was no user system on Board Game Geek at that time. It was just, you had to be an administrator. Like we had some special admin tools to say, okay, we could cut and paste and paste in the message or whatever. But there was no user system. You couldn't sign up for an account. It would say session report by so-and-so. It'd be Greg Schlosser. He was one of the ones that Greg has written thousands of session reports. So he was one of the ones that we put in just to start. And so it was definitely like a lot of manual entry, data entry back then, and just scrounging for information about any game that came around. And that was started in 2000. That's when the site actually launched.
Okay, yeah. Now, how did the RPG Geek and the video game Geek come along?
So when I quit my job in 2005, I quit 3D Realm. I worked at 3D Realms, a video game company. I quit in 2005, and it was kind of like it was getting to a point where everything was just such a labor to create this board game system. We had a very, very hard-coded, like, this is a board game, that's all it can be. And so during that year of me quitting, I was thinking about how to rewrite the whole entire architecture of the website to make it so generic that it could just handle any kind of thing, right? And so, as a proof of concept, the goal was always to create Video Game Geek, right? Because I'm a video gamer. That was my profession before, and I was like, I always wanted to get back to video games in some way. And Video Game Geek or RPG Geek was created as a proof of concept for Video Game Geek, right? Because we could do the RPGs, we could do the video games. They kind of, one would lead into the other. And so that's when I met Dave Bermazzani, who's an avid RP role-playing, gamer, and him and Bob Sumner really took off with the idea, right? And they just spent weeks seeding the database, right? Of just like entering in their collections and testing the software that I had written. And so RPG Geek came out, and then I believe just 1 year later, Video Game Geek was done. And the software is basically such that I could create any number of geek sites. It's pretty generic. It's not like the most amazing object-oriented piece of code in the world, but it definitely has the ability to be manipulated and turned into other websites without too much trouble. I mean, there's definitely some hoops to jump through, but it's not as hard as like starting from scratch, for sure.
Yeah, and now you said the Geek's 15 years old now, and I think you said it's over 1 million users, right? Or subscribers.
Just surpassed 1 million registered users. And that's across all the websites because you only really have one account. All you need is one account, and you can use Video Game Geek or RPG Geek or Board Game Geek.
I actually did not realize that. I never really played with the other two too much, RPG or video game.
I mean, I think a lot of people, there's some people who cross over the different sites, but a lot of people either come to board games or role-playing, or, they kind of focus on one thing.
Right. So you said in 2005 you decided to go with Board Game Geek full-time, or the Geek in general full-time.
Yeah.
What was that like for you? Just quitting your job and saying, "Hey, I'm going to run this site."
Oh, it was definitely scary. I mean, because I was doing pretty well as a video game developer. 3D Realms was very successful back in the 90s with Duke Nukem, and they paid a fair salary for engineers. And I mean, I haven't really looked at the industry lately, but typically part of the reward of working in the video game industry is just that you work in the video game industry and you would take less salary, right? Like a lot of people are expected to work a little cheaper than they normally would because, hey, you're working in the video game industry and that's really cool, right? So I think that's kind of most companies now, although things may have changed. I have not looked lately. There was definitely a time when I was interviewing in the video game industry and I was getting some offers. Like when I moved back, I actually interviewed with a few different companies, and some of the money was just like ridiculously low. The offer, I'm like, I can't live on, I can't live that way. So, 3D Realms was very generous that way. So yeah, it was definitely like a scary kind of thing, right? It's like, oh well, what happens if we don't make, the money at that point, I think we were basically doing AdSense, Google AdSense.
Right.
And that was the way, we kept getting more and more popular, more and more views. People were, doing that. And we used AdSense to kind of like start earning some money. When I went full time, we actually started pursuing advertising from board game publishers directly. And there was actually a time, I won't mention the name of the company, that I put a big risk into, and they went out of business right after the ads ran. They basically went out of business. So that was the first month of me as a full-time Board Game Geek. In fact, I had actually fronted the money to get the art done for their ads. Right? Like I had a bunch of friends who were artists. And I said, hey, I'll take over all the ad creation, kind of like an ad agency, right? Right. But then I had to upfront pay for the ad artwork. So I paid for the ad artwork. I ran the ads. I believe the campaigns were successful, but then the company went out of business. Didn't pay the invoice. So that was kind of like it was like a significant amount of money that was not earned during those first days. So it was a little bit like, oh crap, am I gonna have to take a loan? You know, it was one of those kind of like, if we don't recover, you know, it was definitely some harrowing experience there. But I also got turned into, like, somehow at that moment, Avalon Hill started putting games out again through Hasbro, and they were spending they were spending a lot of money on advertising at that time. So we hooked up with them through another third-party network and got ads for like Nexus Ops and the Richard Garfield game, which I'm not remembering what that is, but I think it was like Robo something, or can't remember. Not Robo Rally, but one of the Avalon Hill game he did after that. And then there was a pirate game. There was like a string of them that came out right at that time. It was like the new Avalon Hill. I think Nexus Stops was the one. That's the one I remember the most, because they sent us about 40 copies to give away to do a contest.
Right.
And that was really exciting, right? Because it was like, oh, I had all these games in my house, and I'm like, I get to give them away. It was kind of like Christmas, basically. Yeah, they redid Acquire at that time. Trying to remember that Richard Garfield game. I see it on the shelf of stores still. Rocketville.
Never heard of it.
And Monsters Menace America. That was another one where they redid Monsters Ravage America, I think was the original, or Cross America. Avalon Hill game.
Okay.
Anyway.
Well, I'm sure every company has growing pains, you know, especially when they're going in an unknown territory like that, you know. Now, when did like the con coverage start coming along? The Ashton and GenCon.
The first convention was in 2005. So we did that in downtown Dallas. It was 250 people came to that. And it was just an idea. It's like, hey, you know, we got a bunch of people on the website. This is when the community started forming up on Board Game Geek, right? Like, over the years, I had been working on getting it to be more of a user-based site where people could log in with an account and do work, or, you know, upload reviews or whatever. Upload pictures, do their collections, all that stuff. And so eventually we started getting like some critical mass on people and talking, you know, people having conversations. So it was like, hey, well, let's just have a convention and see what happens. And so we contracted with the Westin, I think at that time. Was it Westin at that time? Yeah, Westin. It was in downtown Dallas, and it was right in the middle of like where the Plaza of the Americas is. It's like a big kind of commerce area, like a lot of big buildings and stuff. And we actually had the 11th floor of an office building for the convention. So the convention was in an office building. You had to go from the hotel to the up, 15 floors or wherever it was. And it just felt like you were playing in someone's abandoned office. A bunch of tables and, fluorescent lighting. And it had a great view. You can see downtown, all downtown from there up there. And it was a good time. So we did that for 2 years, 2005 and 2006. And then we moved to another hotel out in not Grapevine, Irving. And then we did that for a few more years and outgrew that hotel. And then now we're at the Hyatt, DFW Hyatt in the airport in Grapevine.
I know in the past you said you've been constantly growing. This year you actually cut it back 100 people because you didn't like the congestion.
Yeah, we cut it back 100 people. Yeah, I felt there was, I wouldn't say it was like overcrowded, but there were times when it was a little bit uncomfortable. It was a little hard to find a table. And I think 100 people will definitely help that. And we're doing a little restructuring of it. We're trying to accommodate as many people as we can. And then last year we just, did a little bit over. And now we're pulling it back. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. It should be a good time. And we're also getting another big area in the hotel, like a conference room level on one of their upper floors. So that'll be even more kind of overflow, or we can do some other quieter games. Like there could be a quiet game area because it would be a little bit away from the bustle of the main convention.
Yeah. I know you said you had a contract for a couple of years with this one. Do you feel like you're ever going to expand into a bigger place, or you want to keep it at the level it is now?
I won't say never, but right now the way it is the way we like it. It's right around 2,500 people, and to get bigger than that it would basically cause a few more logistical issues that we would have to deal with. And I'm not saying that'll never happen, but for now we're locked into this hotel for the foreseeable future.
Okay.
Which means we're capped
at
that level. Yeah. So if you're actually thinking about coming, you should buy your tickets quickly in the future year, because I think this year we sold out in about 10 days, maybe a little less than that.
Yeah, it wasn't long.
Whereas the previous year we had taken about 2 months to sell out.
Now, do you run that, or is that through somebody else helping you? Like, I know Dice Tower Con, somebody else runs that other than Tom.
Well, Board Game Geek owns the convention, and I contract out people to help.
Okay.
Jeff Anderson we're basically calling him the director of events, Board Game Geek director of events. He's not a full-time employee, but he definitely helps.
Okay.
He does the conventions. He ran the cruise, and he's also in charge of this. Oops, it's my desk. It's a stand-up desk. The convention that's coming up for this weekend, actually, it's the BGG Heart Fam, but we're just calling it BGG Fam. So Jeff he's almost a full-time employee. Basically spending a lot of time on Board Game Geek stuff for sure. But he also has a full-time job as a programmer.
Yeah. No. Yeah. You said
no. It's definitely a team effort. It's not just me. There's about 4 to 6 core people that do the convention every year that really they do a great job. I mean, I can't be any happier.
All right. Cool. Yeah. Like you said, you got BBG Fam coming out for the first time. You said that went over pretty well. You had 500 people roughly. Or
yep,
BBG, I only had Oh, good.
Oh, go ahead and finish.
I was going to say, like, BBG Con the first year only had like 250, you were saying.
Right, yeah. So the first year we did a convention, it was 250 people, and then it's grown to 2,500. And then kind of, instead of expanding the main, the convention in the fall, we're splitting out into another convention. And this, there are about 500 people coming to this one. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it because it'll kind of be a little more relaxing for us. Just there's quite a difference running a 2,500 person convention versus a 500.
Oh, I'm sure.
The demand on my time will be a lot less, so I'll get to have some fun and play some games. Although I get to play games most of the time. It's definitely I've been doing less and less of the convention work each year, which is great because Jeff and Christine, John and Lainey, they take off all the headaches off my plate. So it's really cool. And they're all running this convention too. So I imagine I probably won't have much to do, if anything. But I like to walk around and talk to people and make sure people are having a good time. I mean, it's kind of like a party where I'm the host, making sure everything's going right. Although there's usually never any problems that I have to deal with. It's all good.
Mm.
I just get the love.
Now, a couple months ago, you had I don't know what you call it, the boat trip, BBG at Sea, I think it was.
BBG at Sea, yeah, we call it. It was a cruise that we did on Royal Caribbean, and we had about 150 people come to that. Okay. And we got they have what they call like a conference center on the boat. I think it was 4,000 square feet, maybe a little bigger than that. It's either 4,000 or 8,000. I have a bad time remembering. Mm. But it was perfect. It was like perfectly sized. There was plenty of tables. We brought about 400 games down from the library. People got to pick what they wanted, and so the library composed of all what people just wanted to play. Right. And the library was phenomenal. Like there was never a point in time where I was looking at the library and be like, there's nothing to play. It was always like, oh, I want to play that. 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 Mm-hmm. In fact, I got a lot of gaming in that week. Basically, every day at sea, the full days at sea, I spent a lot of time in the game room. And then when we were in Cozumel, I did not get off the boat during that day, so I stayed on. Played games all day.
Is that something you're going to continue in the future, or?
We're looking into it. We're trying to find one for next year. It's a little harder for some reason. The boats are full. There's lots of competition for those conference rooms because they do great. They do for groups that are going on, travel. They do a good deal. If you get that conference room basically for nothing. So those get snapped up pretty quick.
Okay.
And we're trying to do some different places. Like we went to Jamaica, Grand Cayman, and Cozumel, Mexico. We want to do some different ports instead of just going back to the same ones. Yeah, it was a great time. I was definitely sad to get off that boat. It was super relaxing, super fun. You don't have to worry about anything. The boat, you don't have to worry about traveling. Like when you're traveling through Europe, you got to worry about how am I going to get to the next place,
Right.
Like trains or whatever, cars, planes, all that stuff. With a boat, you just get on. You never unpack. You only unpack once, right? And then you don't have to pack back up again, and you go to a bunch of different places. It's definitely a fun way to travel if you can do it.
Cool. Now, before we move on, I want to talk about your the BBG collection. How big is this, and how does that work?
So, yeah, I've been collecting games for a long time. When we first started the convention, I just put my entire collection into the Board Game Geek company. Just transferred it in. So I think I had about 1,200, 1,300 games there at that point. And then every year, through buying games and also getting games donated from publishers, we built the collection up to, I want to say, like around 6,000 games. Let me double check. I can give you the real numbers. It's all listed on Board Game Geek. It's under the BGG library account. So it's 4,000 games that are actually on shelves, and then about 2,000 games in storage. We pulled a significant amount of games out to make room for the new ones. That's kind of something that we had never done before. We had always had all the games basically on shelves. Yeah, so there's 1,800 games in storage and 4,100 games on the shelves right now.
Wow. How do you determine the cycling in and out of that?
So with our library software that we use at the convention, we track everything that gets checked in and out. Right. So we made a list of every game that had not been checked out for the past 3 years.
Oh, okay.
And pulled those off the shelves. And of course, there were some judgment calls there. We kept some stuff that hadn't been checked out in a while, just because it's like classic games that would be just heartbreaking to pull off a shelf. Like every game library needs that game, those kind of things.
Right.
Like Acquire. Like no one ever played Acquire in like 3 years. So we left one copy on and put the other ones away, but no one had played it. So, yeah, it's definitely starting to become a challenge for space because I rent sort of a warehouse. It's not a warehouse. It's actually an airplane hangar. And I use that as the storage. And we've built it up with like Costco type shelves, the storage racks. I don't know what you call those. That hold pallets.
Right.
And so now what we do is when we put the games in storage, we put them in bins on pallets and then put them up on those racks. So I'm definitely seeing a point in time where we're going to be out of space, just because the sheer amount of games coming out now is just it's unreal, right? Like I think we had well over 1,000 releases last year.
Yeah,
and we get most of those games, right? So I'm gonna have to do. We did a fundraiser last year at BBG Con for the Big Brother Big Sisters of Tarrant County, or Northwest Texas, I think they're calling it, Northeast. The Big Brothers Big Sisters charity. We did a charity auction through the DFW Nerd Night group. So they ran it, and I put in 100 games.
Okay.
And I think we broke, I keep forgetting the number, but I definitely think we broke $10,000 wrist.
Oh, that's cool.
The games that we sold. So I probably will start doing more charity auctions with the games, just because I'm going to run out of space.
Yeah. Well,
at some point, and you can't play all these games. So
I'd hate to see the logistics of that, just moving the library around.
So we've got 30 rolling shelves that are like baker's racks, like speed rack kind of things that you just push. We actually went from, I think we had 12-foot racks down to 6-footers because the wheels were starting to crush.
Oh.
Like if you fill a baker's rack up completely with games, the wheels would eventually like fold under. So we broke a couple shelves that way, and we're like, you know what? They're all going to break eventually, so let's just replace them all. And so we took, that was kind of quite an expenditure because we had been building the shelving up over the years, right? So replacing 26 or 12-footers with like 30 or 40 6-footers was a lot of money. And then also we bought pallet lifters. We have pallet lifter, pallet jack, all motorized, right? Like, so it's pretty insane.
Now how do you do the physical movement? Is that like a U-Haul truck, or you rent a rig? Or
we rent 2 rigs and do 3 trips.
Wow.
2 trips. It's 4 trucks basically.
Yeah, that's one of the things I heard about BBG was the library's really great, and then just the environment in general. But I've never been to one.
Okay.
Next year.
It's been a fun time making it happen. I got to tell you, because we get to do it the way we want to do it, right? We've modeled it after the Gathering of Friends convention.
Okay.
Where it's just like a whole bunch of open gaming for for the whole week. And then, basically like do a few events here and there, like a poker tournament, a puzzle hunt, a game show, stuff like that.
It's cool.
So here's a picture. See if I can share this picture into the screen.
There you go.
Is that coming through? It's kind of clicked off, but
I'm gonna click on it. There you go.
There you go.
Oh, cool.
So that you can see the shelving. All those shelves are now full. As you can see to the left, above the racks, there are bins of games.
Okay.
And so below, both the left and the right bins are now, the shelving is full. So.
Wow. That's a lot of games.
That's almost 8,000 games. And it grows by about 1,000 a year, or maybe even more than that with Kickstarter. Like I've been backing a lot of stuff on Kickstarter because I just want to see more game publishers in the world, right? And just kind of helping them out. And plus I like to see the new games, right? So with the combination of Kickstarter, GenCon, Spiel in Essen, Nuremberg, there's over 1,000 games that are, high quality games that we're interested in, right? Our hobby.
All right. Now, when did you bring Lincoln and them guys on to do like the con coverage for Essen and then Gen Con?
Well, that started, gosh, I don't even remember the first year we went. I think it was 06 or 07. We had been going to Spiel every year to buy the games for the convention at that point. Maybe it was like the 3rd year of doing that. We're just like, you know what? Let's just go out there and like cover the games as like a press company, news company, kind of. I don't know what the right term is. And so we looked into buying a booth, renting a booth from Spiel in Germany, right? And it's exorbitant prices. So it was quite a swallow of like, okay, well, we're going to be spending, because before we would just fly there, 2 people, 1 to 2 people, and buy everything, right?
Right.
And bring it back in suitcases, right? So we bring like 4 suitcases filled to the brim with games, right? like basically like 200 pounds of games every year. And it's like, well, you know what? We'll pay for the booth. We'll set up the internet streaming. We live stream. And actually, it was Lincoln's idea to do that. And I'll step back in time and tell you the story. The first year we went, we were just gonna go get the games, right? Like collect them and do Geek Buzz, which is our rating system that we can do at events and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I had brought my webcam just in case, right? We had an internet connection. I'm like, you know what? I'll just bring the webcam. Maybe I'll need it to talk to somebody at home, whatever. And then Freedom and Freeze comes by, and he's like, hey, I got my new game. Do you want me to explain it to you? Or no, it was actually Dirk Hen. Dirk Hen was the first one.
Okay.
And we're like, you know what? Why don't we live stream this? Because I can just hook my webcam up and get a mic on him and like just see what happens, right? And that was Lincoln's idea. And it came out terrible. It was the worst, like low res video, like really crappy sound. The sound in the room of Spiel is just so loud that it overwhelmed the little Logitech mic. But you could still make sense of it, actually. If you go back on our history on our YouTube channel, you can see some of the old stuff. It's all there. And we eventually were just like, okay, well, we got Dirk Hen to do his game. Let's get Freedom Freeze to do his game. So he comes over and does his game. And then another person comes and shows us their game. And we're like, you know what? Why don't we just start doing this for everything, right? So the next year, we bought a better camera, got a better microphone, and started really taking it seriously. I think that year, Lincoln went... We did it with a skeleton crew. It was only 4 people. And it was a nightmare. It was so much work for those guys. It was overwhelming. Because basically what you have to do this stuff is you have to schedule it all ahead of time, right? You've got 5 days to do it. You've got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Okay? You can only live stream from the show for about 8 hours each day, right? An hour to set up, an hour to tear down. So you have about 8 hours total. And you need to keep everybody on schedule, like 30 minutes per person, right? Sounds easy, just as I said it. It's incredibly hard to do with 4 people, right? And you also have to have someone manning the computer. You have to have someone on the camera. You have to have someone interviewing, right? To be the host. And with 4 people, it was just overwhelming. So that was the year I did not go. And they still did a fantastic job. But then after that, I'm like, you know what? Let's just get a bigger booth. We went real slim down that year. Trying to save money and stuff. We got a very small booth, just 4 people. Now we have, I want to say 12 people doing it.
Okay.
And that, that kind of all came together through, me and Lincoln had a vision to try to get this done. And Eric, and just to show every single game we possibly can live on the internet. And, in exchange, we get a copy of the game. We actually get a couple copies, which we basically just put into the Board Game Geek library, and people can play at the convention. So it helps the publishers. They really like it. It helps us. We get the games to the library. We ship everything back by air at considerable expense to make it on time. Mm. And so that's kind of, it's evolved throughout those years. But I think it was 07 was the first year we did it, because we were just tired of like sending one person out there to go buy 500 games. It's like, let's do this in a more organized way. And Lincoln's gone every year since then. Yeah, it's been great.
I didn't realize the crew's that big, 12 people. I was thinking
it's built up to 12 because basically we got 2 people organizing the schedule and organizing the collecting of the games, right? Yeah. And punching and packing, because we have to pack everything in that short amount of time to get it ready to go air freight, right? So you've got 2 people doing that. You've got 2 people doing hosting job, right? Being on camera. Mm-hmm. And then you've got me and Lincoln as tech crew, right? My wife Michelle helps. She does we've started actually selling things while we're there to make a little money. We sell promos and things like that.
Right.
And then we've got, who am I missing? Chad. Chad comes there for business relationship. He does, if people are doing Kickstarters or advertising deals or whatever, like Chad tries to, get that all done at Spiel, right? Face to face, a lot easier to get things done.
Yeah.
That's how we organize all the promos. And then we've got Eric and John, even though we live stream 10 hours a day for 5 days, so it's 50 hours. We do about 200 videos, 300 videos around there, 250. We don't cover everything. Right. So Eric and John take a camera on a tripod or a monopod and a mic, and they go cover everything else that we missed. Right. So there's 12 people.
Wow.
And then Doug and Shelley are doing all the packing. Yeah. So I think I added it up to 12. I'm not. Can't exactly remember.
So
it's pretty crazy.
Who do you torture with all the editing of that? I mean, I know you do the live stream, but you also do the chunks from one game at a time. Who do you torture to do the editing?
When we get back from Spiel, I basically spend 50 hours editing.
Oh, it's you. Okay.
Yeah. I'm really quick at it. I can do it very quick, and I've got a pretty good computer that churns them out. So basically, what I'll do is I'm sitting here at my desk. I've got a PC right here. You can't see it, and a Mac here, right? So I'm on my PC for the editing because it's like a super fast video card, right? And then I do my regular work on my Mac, like my programming and whatnot. So I'll do some programming, and then I'll be like, I'll do a few more videos, and then I queue them up, right? So then the PC just cranks all week, and then uploads too, right? Because you got to upload all this stuff to YouTube. So yeah, it's kind of a hell after Spiel to edit all that stuff down, but it's fun. I mean, I really like it. I mean, plus I get to watch all the videos. I don't really get to see them all while I'm there because I'm doing a million things while I'm there myself. So I'll see some of the games while they're being done, but I don't get to see everything. And then so as I'm editing, I get to see, oh, that looks cool. I'll put it on my list, try it out. But that's all I do for editing. Lincoln does all the game night stuff, which I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yeah, I was actually going to get that in a minute.
Yeah, I'll wait.
Now,
all the video editing I do when we get back from the convention, and we've actually started doing this at GenCon now too. Last year was our second year of doing live stream and videos from GenCon. And GenCon's just as busy. Even though it's 4 days, it's still just as busy. There's that many games coming out. And we try not to duplicate, right? Like if a publisher shows us a game at GenCon, we don't want to cover it again in German, at Spiel. So we try to keep everything just, sometimes some of the more cooler games we usually do cover a couple times because, more and more information spills out about them. Or if they didn't have the game in hand when they came on for the first time or something like that.
Yeah, you actually just answered my next question. Is it the same size crew in GenCon as it is in
no, it's a little smaller. I think we're at 10 people.
Okay.
Not 12.
So, Board Game Geek TV. How did the game night come along?
So, I had this idea for a long format series that would just show people playing the game. So it'd be a rules explanation, film the entire thing, unedited, and then a wrap up at the end. And that was kind of my idea. I'm like, you know what? Talking to Lincoln, there's just nothing like that right now. There's no one doing the whole entire game, right? This is before tabletop, by the way. And then about a year later, after I told Lincoln the idea, about a year later, he's like, "Hey, I got a surprise for you." Well, in between that time, tabletop came out, and I was like, "Ugh, I can't believe that came out." I was like a little bit grief stricken, right? Because I was like, "Oh, that was kind of my idea." They took, they did it or whatever. But tabletop is nothing like my idea, right? Tabletop is a highly produced highly edited version of the game. You cannot learn the game from watching tabletop. You can get a feel for the game, but you can't get all the intricacies of it. So it was kind of like, oh yeah, okay, tabletop is awesome, and I really like it. It's done great things. And Lincoln, and then about 6 months after tabletop came out, Lincoln comes to me and goes like, hey, I got a surprise for you. I'm like, what? And he showed me or told me the plan, like, hey, on Saturday the guys are coming over, and we're gonna film King of Tokyo, like the first game. I'm like, oh, for what? He goes, well, we're doing that show. We're gonna do the game night show, the game night idea. So he kind of surprised me with it. Like he had been setting up all his house to basically film that stuff, right? Because it's a huge amount of effort to film in your living area. Like you have tripods with lights and cameras and mics, and so all the equipment that we bring every year to Germany and to GenCon stays with Lincoln, right? And he kind of manages all of it. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. And he basically did it and created game night. And it's really a labor of love for him. I mean, he does a mountain of effort. Everybody there is awesome though. Like Dave and Aaron are both experts at learning rules and teaching them like in a moment's notice. Like sometimes they're literally like reading the rule book like 20 minutes before they go on camera. Right? So they're like, internalizing the rules and they do a great job of explaining. And then Nikki's been in every episode, and she did the video. She did the intro, little graphic thing, and Lincoln's brother did the music. He's a musician. So yeah, it was really. I was excited to have it created. Now it's taken off, right? Like Lincoln is definitely overloaded with work now. It's full time. It's not full time for him, but it definitely takes a lot of time. Right. So for every hour of video, it probably takes 10 hours to produce.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, I don't think.
I'm glad they keep doing it. I mean, we actually in season 3 we Lincoln built a studio in his house. So that's what the set is for the season 3. It's basically another room in their house that they turned into like a game room, and it's more than a studio; it's an actual game room, right? And it took him over a year to do that because he had to basically move out. The room was a storage room, and then they turned it completely into a really nicely decorated studio with a game table, with all the lights and cameras and everything are in there too.
Yeah, that's actually how I started in a separate room. And then when I brought Jen on, we moved into what's our living room type deal. It's actually a den in the house, but yeah, I don't think people realize how much time and effort do go into the video reviews. I actually, when I brought Jen on, I wanted to model it after the board game, your thing, but I don't have that stream of consciousness thing like them guys do. I do a lot of editing for Dead Space and stuff like that. Jen's real AP prone and stuff,
Yeah, like my original idea was to do an unedited show, right? Just live, just cut it, just to save the amount of work. But Lincoln is very he's like, I think I need to edit, So he started editing, and now he's editing. He's spending a lot of time editing.
Yeah.
If there's ever rules issues or some kind of problem or a phone call or all those kind of weird things.
Yeah. What I didn't know is that you're basically on a video chat while they're filming it. I thought it was just them guys.
Yeah, I Skype in. I'm on a camera, I'm actually on a giant large screen TV, my face while they're playing. So I try to catch rule problems, which is incredibly hard over the Skype. Because I can't really see all the details of what's going on. I get a good feeling for it, and when they say stuff, and I'm like, that didn't sound right, I'll go double check the rules, and then if I find a problem, I'll have to okay, well, we got to redo that part or whatever. So,
yeah, it's actually pretty cool. Well, yeah, you're in Texas. Where they're in California?
Yeah, they're in LA. Yeah, Los Angeles.
Actually, last night I was watching the one with Rich Sumner's with Evolution.
Right, yeah. That was just recorded. So a lot of times Lincoln will record 3 or 4 episodes in one day.
Right.
But then it'll take a month to come out. So yeah, Rich, I guess he had a free weekend a couple weekends ago, and they recorded Evolution and Dominion.
Okay.
And I think they did one other game too.
All right.
I don't know what it is, but yeah, it's hard to remember exactly. Like they do so many games, like what did they do? I can't remember.
Now,
yeah,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I remember the game, but I won't spoil it.
Okay. Now, we did talk about your collection, the BBG Collection. How many of those games have you actually played?
Oh, a mere fraction.
I'm sure.
I try to play all the major games, though, right? Like the major games that come out, the Gamers games, the Golden Geek games. Those are the minimum. You know, I at least focus on those. I also really like playing Ameritrash stuff. Like I love thematic games, dice rolling, you know, RPG stuff. That's probably my favorite right now.
Okay.
But yeah, I probably don't play as much as people think. There is a game group that meets weekly, but I hardly go to it. I go maybe once a month. And then I go to the Dallas Games Marathon when I can, which is a kind of like a little mini convention in Dallas that they hold once a month, you know, for a weekend. Yeah, believe me, I want to play more, but I just don't. I don't dedicate the time to it. I do other stuff.
Right.
I mean, it's not like I'm doing other fun stuff. I'm doing work usually. Like you know, when you run your own company, it's like you're the hardest work. You work the hardest you've ever worked. I think I definitely feel that these days. Like every year that goes by, it just gets a little bigger, a little harder. So, but I mean, I still love it though. I would not trade it.
Yeah.
For a day job.
I hear you. I don't want to keep you too late.
Oh, no worries. Whatever you need.
So, what do you got coming up new with Board Game Geek, the webpage?
So, I know I've said this before, and I probably sound like a broken record, but we're working on redesign. But it's true. And so we've been working. I posted up something last year. I think a lot of people didn't really realize that we had a lot of security problems with the website that needed to be addressed. Okay. And so a lot of our time last year took, and I didn't want to say it publicly, right? Like I can't come out and say, people be like, well, what are you doing with your time? You know, what are you doing to improve the website? I don't see any new features. I don't see any changes. And people, you know, I'm like, well, I'm working on something, but I don't want to really tell you what it is, right? Because if I go tell people, hey, there's security issues, maybe I become a target for hackers more or something. Right. You know what I mean? Like it was kind of a thing that I wanted to share with people, but I really couldn't until the job was done. So we spent, I think it was like 8 months of last year, thinking maybe 8, maybe less, of just rewriting all the database code. And that did not, so from all appearances to the users, it doesn't look like anything changed. And I know a lot of people, like, you know, more and more people are getting into the hobby and they're finding Board Game Geek and they're just kind of being turned away from its look, right? I get that. I know a lot of people are, you know, these days, most of the new websites coming out look really cool. Everybody's got flashy interface. You know, there's a lot of money going into the internet to help that. And so this is the year where we're actually finally going to get it done. We've taken a different approach because we've tried this before, and we're not going to try to rewrite everything at once. We're going to work on specific parts. And the marketplace was the first step towards that. The Board Game Geek marketplace had not been touched really seriously in 10 years. Like the code that I wrote 10 years ago for the marketplace, was still the same code that was running up till last year. So after we finished the security issues, I rewrote the marketplace basically to completely overhaul it. And that took me about 2 months. And that's what's running now. And it's actually greatly improved conversions. Like there's a lot more transactions going through the store now. And I still have more ideas that I want to get back to and put in there. But in December and January, of this year, we actually hired a designer to work on the user interface. And you may have seen, we did some polling of the users to kind of get an idea of what people are looking for. Like, I know how I want to use the website, but what do the majority of the people, how do they want to use it? And so it was very eye-opening, some of the results. So we've taken that data and gone with a designer to kind of rewrite the game pages. So when you go and you look at a game page, like let's say Catan, all the stuff that you want the most is going to be at the top, right? And then as you scroll down, you're going to see more of the details, and you can click to see more details and things like, so all of the jumble that's there now is not on the page now, right? It's still there in the background, but it takes a little bit, a little bit of exploring to get there. So hopefully that will not scare everybody away, and we can get more people into the hobby and more active users on Board Game Geek to kind of like, start keeping their collections, recording the plays. That's the stuff that for us that is the most important. We want people to use the website like that's their tool to keep track of board games, to learn about games. We've amped up. Eric has gone full-time now. He's a full-time employee. We've amped up the news. We've amped up the coverage, right? He just got back from Tokyo. I think he's still working on some of the video that he took there. So yeah, it's basically just a combination of trying to get the user interface to a point where it's a lot easier to use, a lot more friendly, but still have the power that people want. That's a tall order, right? Mm-hmm. This is a 15-year-old lumbering beast with a million different nooks and crannies, right? But anyway, it's been fun. We're coming to a point where we're almost to a beta. So I'll post some announcements there. It'll be a live beta too. It'll actually be live on the site. It won't be a separate. It won't be a separate website. It'll be integrated live. And that was kind of our point. Like, we want to make everything work while the current website runs, because the last time we did redesign, we rewrote everything. Right? It was a complete 100%. Let's do everything at once, and it was just too much. And it kind of fell apart. It was just too many things, too many different things to do at once. Nothing really got focused, in my opinion, enough focus to fix it the right way. And it just turned into kind of a big mess of code again. Okay. And I did not want to go forward with that. That's why I canceled it.
No,
software development is tough. I'm by no means the world's best software developer. So I have to live with it, right? So I kind of want to do things the way that I can live with, and that's what this current one is. Okay.
No, anytime you adjust something on this, how much bitching do you get from the community?
Well, the marketplace was fairly universally liked.
Okay.
Just because the old one was just so terrible. Maybe there was a couple functions that didn't get completely switched over, right? But I think we've caught it back up to what the previous system had. But yeah, there's always people that complain. That goes hand in hand with the internet these days. Like, if you want to be a leader or a out front person in front of your company on the internet, you got to have a thick skin for criticism, because people will just criticize. Even if they don't really realize how it affects people, you know what I mean? Like, it just happens. So you can't let that bother you. Right. I try not to. I do take criticism personally, to take it to heart. Like, if someone criticizes Board Game Geek, it's a piece of me, Mm-hmm. But I read it all, and I do the best things where I think that the website and the company need to do. Yeah.
No, I was just
but as more and more people grow, it turns a bit to the negative, right? The internet is inherently negative these days, so we've instituted a lot of rules to try to stem that off. Like, we don't want a pit of just making fun of people or demeaning, belittling. Like, that's all. You go to YouTube, that's basically what that is, right? Like, YouTube has very little role. And, a lot of people rub up against those rules, and they they get suspended. I mean, we're kind of like being a little more hard these days. So, but we want to keep it. We want to keep it the way it's been going forward. Anyway, there's that.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say, I love the website. It's a great tool, but for new users, it's really rough to get in there. Get used to it. Especially one of my biggest things is the search engine. If you don't know exactly how a game's spelled, you're pretty much screwed.
Yeah, and that's mostly because we locked into a specific type of search engine that's a third-party system.
No.
And it's just not been updated, right? Like, it needs to come back around again. I mean, I think a lot of people don't realize that it's just me and one other person.
Yeah.
Right? It's two people. And a lot of people think we're like Google or something, right? With billions of dollars to spend on engineering. It's like, no, we don't. We have two people. Yeah. And we try to do what we try to work on the things that need the most attention. Like I said, the security issue was number one. That was just a time bomb waiting to go off. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the search engine definitely needs a refresh to get into more modern type searching, right? Where misspellings don't matter, and I'm sure that there's probably a million other things that can be done to make the searching better. It just has not been a priority yet.
Yeah.
Not saying it never will be. It definitely is on my mind. So yeah, there's a lot of things I want to do. I mean, my list of features and improvements will keep me busy for the next 10 years at least. As long as people will support it. That's the beautiful thing about this is like it's a community driven website, right? And without the users, I'd be doing nothing. I mean, it definitely wouldn't be where it is now. So it's kind of I appreciate all the things people put into the website, and I try to do the best I can to make it useful for them.
Cool. So, I've been borrowing this thing off of Lance Meister there for the last couple months, where I'll ask 3 questions. The first one is, what's a game you love and everybody else hates?
It's a game I love and everybody else hates. I think Tigris and Euphrates gets a lot of hate these days. That's one of my favorites. It's probably my all-time favorite. And I notice less and less. I guess it's getting reprinted now, so maybe more people get to try it. But I had noticed a lot of hate for it lately. That and Settlers. I love Settlers, and I feel like Settlers gets a lot of hate these days. And I don't know why. It's still a great game. I just played it last weekend. My wife had never played it, and we finally got around to doing it. So, and I still had a great time. So, I don't know if that's a game everybody hates, but it's definitely one of those games that seems to be falling out of favor these days. Yeah. I'm sure I could probably come up with something worse.
The next one is to go reverse that. What's one you hate and everybody else loves?
I hate and everybody else loves. Gosh, I have no idea. I don't really hate many games. I don't know. I mean, that's a hard one for me to answer because I can't really think of games that I'll just like. Oh, I can't play that game. I actually have a good idea. I will never play this game again. It's the Game of Thrones board game.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's too mean. It's too backstabbing. I mean, that's part of the Game of Thrones. I get it, but I just don't enjoy that kind of gaming experience where people just lie. And I definitely don't mind playing bluffing games and lying games, but a lot of those games only take like 20 minutes to play, 30 minutes. So I'm fine with that. But Game of Thrones takes like all day. Like it's 4 hours.
Yeah.
So not all day, but a good amount of time. And in my last playing of the game, I basically said, "Yep, I'll never play this game again." That was one. And now I don't know if a lot of people are in the same boat as me, but I know Game of Thrones is very popular. So
Yeah, I haven't played it yet. I haven't had the player count to do it, you know.
yeah.
So I'm still waiting to see. Now, would you throw diplomacy in that same category?
I've never played diplomacy actually, but I imagine it's probably a lot similar, right? You make deals and people lie and they don't do it. Those kind of, and I don't mind that kind of gaming, like the lying part. It's the ones that just take a lot of hours to play, where I'm putting a lot of effort and time into it, and then to have it all just go spoiled by the action of another person.
Yeah.
Like that's my least favorite mechanics in game. Like, and I don't mind conflict games. That's not the issue. It's the games where I put a lot of effort in building something up, and someone can tear it down with like very little effort. Like those kind of games just don't interest me.
Okay. All right. So the final one is, what conspiracy theory do you buy into, if any? A lot of people dodge this one. Yeah, a lot of people dodge this one.
Let's see. Is Area 51 a conspiracy theory?
Yeah, I guess it would be.
Yeah, maybe I believe in that.
Yeah. Okay.
There's definitely some kind of alien in here. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of something else. Yeah. Yeah, I guess probably Area 51.
Yeah, that's surprising. You're one of the few people who actually answer that question. Yeah, there are a lot of people try to dodge that one. I'm actually thinking about changing it. But all right.
Can be made fun of, I guess, if you answer it.
Yeah.
Like in a weird way.
So if you met somebody on the street just getting into the board game hobby, what advice would you give to them?
Oh, I meet people on the street all the time. Like, usually, people ask what you do, and I tell them, and they're like, "Oh, that's interesting." That strikes up conversation. So I give them my business card with the website name on it, right? And I write down. I talk to them and see, like, are they looking to play games with their family, or what kind of games they like, and I'll put down a few games of my suggestion. Like things to try. Mm-hmm. So my top 3 are Settlers, Carcassonne, and Ticket to Ride. Mm. And then Dominion is a 4th option if the person is a little more advanced, right? Like if they're natural gamers or they had gamed previously. But if people are just getting into the gaming hobby, Ticket to Ride is always my number 1 suggestion. And then if you're in a competitive family and you get angry over things, go get Pandemic, right? Because Pandemic is a cooperative game, right? Yeah. Takes out the conflict. So yeah, that's my standard line of conversation, depending on who I'm talking to. And I meet a lot of people, like sitting on a plane, whatever, going overseas. Going out with my wife. She's a lawyer, so I get to meet a lot of lawyer friends. And they a lot of people just have no clue that this hobby exists. Right?
Yeah.
And even the slightest amount of the hobby, like to them, board gaming is a tedious thing, like the Monopolies and the Candyland and the stuff they just don't want to play. So I give them that pitch of like, hey, this will be done in an hour, an hour and a half at most, right? And it's super fun. You have a good chance to win all the way through. It provides a great experience. You can hang out with the family. That's my gamer pitch to the people I meet.
Yeah, it is. People do have a preconception of what the hobby is. Yeah, it's a little tough. And actually, my list of games is similar to yours, except for Catan. That never really went over well with us, for some reason. But
yeah, Catan was that game that changed my life, right? That was the game I played that kind of turned me into looking online for a game group. Basically, what had happened is I went to a game store here in Dallas, and I saw Catan and Manhattan on the shelf, right? And I bought both of them. and I took it to poker night, my next poker night when I was still working in telecom, and the poker fell through. So we only had 4 people, and 4 people poker is okay, but it's not great. And we played. I said, you know what? Let's just play this Catan game. Heard it's really cool. We played it. We played it again. We played it about 3 times that same night, and then we had it hooked me. Like it was like, oh, I had no idea that they could be so cool, right? And then it took me down the path of like trying to find more. So that's why I always say Catan to other people, because maybe they'll have the same experience I did.
Yeah.
Change their world.
Yeah, my game was Pandemic. Yeah. I'm newer to the hobby. I've only been in the hobby for like 3 years.
Right. Yeah, this was in the 90s, so a little different time. There are definitely a lot of great gateway games, though, for sure. I mean, it's definitely changed. But I always say Catan just because my personal experience with it.
All right. So, what advice would you give to somebody who wants to start a board game website, I guess?
Don't start it.
Yeah.
No, whatever. I mean, advice to start a board game website. I guess a lot of the bloggers right now are just turning into like, I don't know if I want to say it. Everything's great. I think we need more reviews, though, like more serious critical review.
Right.
It's a little hard, though, sometimes to do negativity, and I've talked with people about this. The fact that we're doing this as a labor of love, and you spend a lot of time creating the content, to go negative is definitely hard. Because, for one, you may have gotten the game from the publisher for free, which can bias you. And 2, spending all the time and to just be negative about something is sometimes to me, like, I don't enjoy that kind of, creating those kinds of things, right? Like, I want to be excited and tell people, like, I want to be more excited about telling people the games I like instead of like bagging on a game I don't like, right? I would rather talk about the good games instead of the bad ones. So, but I do think we need a little more unbiased critical review sometimes, but it's hard. Like, so it's advice, but it's not really advice. It's more of like here's what I want in the world, but I know the problems behind it, and I suffer from them myself, right? The way this industry is everybody knows everybody, so being negative on their stuff is always a touchy area, right? People take it personally. Oops, damn desk. So that's one thing. I also think, I think there's still a lot of room for creativity about talking about and showing off games instead of just a quick review, right? A quick 5-minute review. So I think there's still some more avenues to explore, right? And I think I want to see more video. I want to see more focus on that. Those are my suggestions for starting up board game content.
Yeah, the negative thing is we've only did one. X-Men. I don't really, or X-Files.
Oh, X-Files.
I don't really consider myself a reviewer, but I'll give my opinion and so will Jen. But I really don't go too in depth with it. But yeah, like you said, for video, at least what I do, it's about 10 hours of work for every hour you put up, and you just don't want to spend that much time on something negative,
Yeah.
And
sure.
With X-Files, Jen actually felt bad after we got done with the final thoughts segment of it, and it's like, well, it is what it is, I mean, I'm sure it's good for somebody, but it just wasn't for us, And from what I understand, a lot of people feel that way.
It's a tricky territory that we're in these days because there's so many games now, and there really isn't that many new people doing content.
Yeah.
Like the amount of people doing content has not grown with the amount of games coming out. So it's hard for to get a lot of differing opinions on a game.
Yeah, it's tough. A lot of people get discouraged after a while. You know, most people don't get paid to do this. You know,
exactly. You're doing it out of your labor of love, right? Unless you're looking to create your brand like Tom Vassal, Dice Tower. You're just doing it for fun, and to focus on a negative thing. I get it. It's hard. Trying to think of some other ideas. I always suggest people post their stuff on Board Game Geek, even if they. I know everybody's trying to carve out their own world of the board game industry, but like I've noticed that if you post it on Board Game Geek, you'll definitely get a lot more attention.
Yeah, you will.
So there's a couple people out there that do stuff in a closet, and no one ever sees their stuff. It's like, hey, just post it on Board Game Geek. You'll get like probably 10 times more people looking at it just because of that. I guess it's somewhat selfish.
I've always done it.
But I like to read all the stuff too, and if it doesn't show up on Board Game Geek, it's highly unlikely that I'll see it. Unless I catch it on Twitter or Facebook or something, but I don't know. I don't think Twitter is the medium to put all your board game eggs into, you know.
Right.
You can't have good discourse on Twitter. Things get misconstrued.
Yeah, they do. I know from experience. Yeah, I always post the game videos on Board Game Geek. It's a little tough with like non-game related stuff. Like
yeah, we suffer a little bit when you're just doing talks. Like, where would you post our interview?
Yeah,
maybe in a blog. Like if you had a blog or something, you could post it there. Yeah, but there's no way to like. I'm not a game developer. I don't know. We're not talking about any specific games. So where would you put it? It's hard.
Yeah, and it's just putting it in there. Like with the board games, you could just click on add video, but with this, you got to make like a forum page and then link it to that. And
I usually suggest people start a blog and then put it in a blog.
Yeah, I never even really thought about that.
But that's a little trickier.
Mm-hmm. All right, so like I said, I don't want to keep you too long. If somebody want to get a hold of you, where would they do that?
Aldie at boardgamegeek.com. That's my email. Or you can send me geek mail. I try to answer whatever I can. I do get a lot of email. So if I don't respond to you, don't take it personally. It's just I'm overwhelmed sometimes. If it's a serious things of serious nature, then I usually will get them to the right person. Aldie at boardgamegeek.com or just Aldie and we're follow our Twitter, Board Game Geek. We've got Board Game Geek TV on YouTube. Like those are the places where we're doing the most stuff.
Okay, and for anybody who doesn't know, for some odd reason, what Board Game Geek is, it's www.boardgamegeek.com. Anything you want to pitch before we go, or
pitch? No, I think we're pretty much sold out of everything we're doing this year, so it doesn't really make sense. But yeah, if you're basically, I'll pitch for next year. If you're interested in the BGG Fam Convention, which happens Memorial Day weekend, which is actually next weekend. It's a little too late to sign up for that now, but actually, I guess if you really wanted to come this weekend, and someone's watching this now, we can write me an email and see what we can do. I don't want to stop anybody from. There's plenty of room, so that could potentially be something if you want to come. But for next year, if you want to go to BBG Con, you got to sign up early. It's going to sell out very quick. The one in the fall in November. And then keeping your eye out for BGG at Sea. We're going to announce once we solidify the date. It's a lot of going back and forth with the cruise line to see when the best date and time is. So once we know that, we'll get that out there. Check our GenCon coverage out. That'll be coming up soon. We'll be live streaming every day from GenCon. it'll be visible on the front page of BGG, so shouldn't be hard to find. And then after that, we've got Spiel coverage. That's in October, so it's gonna be a busy end of the year. It's ramping up.
Yeah, the con season is starting.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, and it becomes more and more a little busier every year, which is fine. I would rather have be more busy than not, right? The industry is very healthy right now, or so it feels like. I mean, more games than ever coming out, a lot more people with eyeballs on it, and hopefully everybody's doing well. I don't wish publishers to go out of business.
Yeah. All right, so thanks everybody for watching. I never know how to end these things.
Doing a good job, man.
Good night, I guess.
Yeah, thanks, Barry. Appreciate you having me on.
Thanks for coming. No problem. All right.